Here now, James Carafano, Heritage Foundation Vice President for National Security and Foreign Policy. Great to see you, James. A couple of things the president said there that I want to follow up with you on, questions that I have. So his first suggestion is that Microsoft should go after more than just the 30% portion, the U.S. portion of TikTok. And I'm wondering if you think that that's actually feasible when it comes to buying and taking ownership of this Chinese company.
Well, that's a great question. I don't have a good answer for that. Certainly, it would make sense for Microsoft to go after the American component of that. Microsoft's not a player in the social networking space. It's a huge platform with 14 million users. It would make them a big player. This is a challenge that they're more than up to in terms of making it secure and useful for all Americans. I don't know if the business case there is for Microsoft to even want to go global and deal with all of that. But certainly for the American piece of that, there is, I think, a solid business case for Microsoft.
But isn't there a security case in that even if they do take the American piece of it and the Chinese still have a portion of the company, even if it's operating elsewhere, that it's all interconnected? So do you really stem the potential security problems by only buying the 30%?
Probably, because this is going to be kind of a wholly owned subsidiary. Americans are going to have access to the code. They're going to scrub the code. They're going to be controlling which ISPs it moves through. They're going to scrub who owns any data going forward. So our tech guys that have looked at this feel pretty confident that Microsoft has both the capability and the financial incentive to want to take over the company in the U.S. perspective and to make it work for American consumers.
Okay, it's interesting because if you looked at Microsoft stock, you would see when this news initially broke, it went up, it popped, and then the last couple of days it's ticked down slightly. So investors less excited about this. And I'm wondering if it's that piece of it that we just discussed, or potentially the last thing the president said, where he basically said he or Treasury wants a brokerage fee, if you will, for putting this deal together.
Well, I know under the CFIUS process, if this indeed went through some kind of CFIUS activity, there is a transaction fee that sometimes the U.S. government has paid. Look, the big payoff for Americans is going to come in jobs, taxes, and profit and productivity inside the United States. So there is going to be a big payoff for the United States and the U.S. government, but I think it would come through mostly through productivity. But again, this would actually be, for the U.S., kind of a good news story. It would add major competitors to the social networking space. That adds healthy competition, gives Microsoft a new line of products. And you know what? This is actually an awesome deal for China. We're not stealing the company or as the Chinese company alleged. They would have to buy the company.
Sure,
they're going to pay fair market value. And the guys that sell it, they're going to make a nice profit.
Let me ask you this. If you sort of step back from this deal and the specifics of it, the president has taken an unprecedented stance against China, against intellectual property threats that it's posed and stealing our information here in the United States. This is sort of a piece of that storyline. How do you see this playing out with other companies, China retaliating potentially? I mean, they're not going to stand back. They've said this is discrimination and sort of just take it lying down, right?
That's a super important question. And it starts with understanding how the threat file is. Really up until 2015, the cyber espionage for economic purposes, that was the main deal. And it was run by a very decentralized hacking army. 2015, the Chinese rejiggered that model. They've changed the focus of their hacking. They're still doing economic espionage, but less of it in this kind of covert way. And really, the purpose of their cyber activity inside the United States now is really acting like a giant vacuum cleaner, sucking up all the information they can publicly get, and then storing that information and being able to use artificial intelligence and advanced quantum computing, machine learning to go into that information and utilize it for their activity. So the question is, how do you keep them from getting the vacuum cleaner? And really, there's only a handful of Chinese companies that really offer the potential to get access to that vast amount of information. And they are the telecom giants, ZTE and Huawei. And that's why the United States went after them. And it's this social networking company. Beyond these companies, there's not a lot of Chinese presence here that provides that same kind of massive vacuum cleaner that would create something that would rise to the level of a national threat.
Interesting. You actually make it sound very manageable instead of an overwhelming situation. But James, great to see you. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.